So now that the fight between Shiki and Shura is continuing, we are getting more information about Shura's usage of his ether gear that gives us a more more of an understanding of what differs between Shiki and Shura and just the general usage of their ether gears, because it was something that I was very curious about, if if there was going to be some just really anything but like between them that they either had like maybe one of them had like a different part of the ether gear, not like a two halves or anything, but like say there was like a more of like a branch system, or there was something along the lines that maybe Shiki had a skill that that Shura didn't pick up in his training, something like gravity comet or something, or Shura in the same. Like say that one of them had a technique that again, gravity comet, maybe Ziggy taught that only to Shiki, but there was an equivalent one that was taught to Shura, or Shura made up himself, something like that, just to give them again a different tone or vibe, or just kind of a different display of how their usage of ether gear was different. But the thing that was mentioned was Shiki specializes in affecting the gravity of himself, where Shura's is using the gravity onto other things, which makes a lot of sense when we saw him just using it casually amongst people around him earlier in the arc, like when he killed those women, like right as his character was introduced. And then Shiki, we've seen him improve on affecting other things with gravity, but it seems that one specializes in the other, but they both can still do the other thing. Like we've seen Shiki do it recently. Like he's done it before, but not nearly as much as he as we saw like when they went into the like Oasis base. He's like gravity manipulating all the guns, like selectively picking the guns and dragging them down. And then Shura obviously has used gravity on himself, because he's able to levitate and stuff with his own gravity. So I thought that was actually really cool. That was probably one of my favorite parts of the chapter, if not my favorite, just getting that piece of information. I thought that just gave a lot of like kind of just ground to understand how the fight between these two characters are going to work. And I like the visuals of how their characters are fighting too. Not like entirely, like the fight itself is cool, but I really liked how at the start of the chapter when Shiki, it was right after Shiki punched Shura, and Shura is just kind of like levitating there. I thought that was really cool, just as a, it's just like a small like detail bit about, him, and obviously him and it being a gravity manipulating person, that he's not, he's not going to be handling the moves the same way. He's not going to be like, smash down and get up. He's instead not even going to really use his hands. He's just using gravity to, get himself back up. I thought that was really cool. And then he gives the whole explanation about how he, he's like, oh, I specialize more in gravity on other things. And he picks up like this ship that was deep below the ground. I wonder how deep it actually was. Like, 10 feet, 50 feet, 100 feet, or, even deeper than that, pulling this out. And he even brings up that there's a lot of stuff buried there. And I'm also curious as to how he knows where certain things are. Like, maybe he just kind of, like, reached out and then and found something where maybe he saw, like, debris of it and he knew where it was. Or he just knew where it was beforehand because, say, he, maybe he crashed it or something, or he saw it crash. But he takes all these big rods out of the ship and throws them at Shiki. Shiki's doing his thing, dodging, moving around. This is like this is a pretty standard gravity attack, just kind of throwing things, it's nothing too crazy, and it's more of like it's way more of like an opening move kind of set with Shiki, but at the same time, Shiki knows what he's doing here, he grabs onto it, we've seen him affect other things when he, like at the very start of the series when he grabbed Rebecca's ship and just kind of like lifted it up, so we know that him affecting specific things with gravity is like long established Shiki stuff. This isn't like a new thing, and I just thought it was good that he was, he's able to stop and he's able to counteract each other. And what's funny is I was thinking about this fight, and there's always like a matchup where like it's like a big drawn out battle between the main character and somebody that has a similar power to them. You can look at like Natsu versus Gajil, or like Naruto versus Gaara, or something like that, where it's like, you have somewhat similar of an ability of the other character, but you know, they still have the differentiating points. But the thing about those that are different is, when you look at something like, again, like Gajo or Gaara or someone, they have a similar aspect. You know, Gajo being a Dragon Slayer similar to Natsu, Gaara being a Jinchuriki, kind of like, you know, the same thing as Naruto. But they're different in the concept after that. You know, Iron Dragon Slayer versus, you know, Fire versus Iron, and then you have the Nine Tails versus the One Tails. But in this case, you have the characters essentially having the same power, which, again, is really cool, because usually when you have ones that have similar abilities, you don't usually get it to where they have literally the exact same ability. The only thing that would really kind of like have to separate that is if Shura's isn't Satan gravity, if it's kind of, again, like a different version of just gravity manipulating ether gear. But I don't know after this point. Like, it seems like they're about the same. And also on top of that, I thought it was really, really cool how Shura started kind of like pulling pieces off of the one of like the big mechanical rods that he threw at Shiki, and started throwing the individual pieces at him. I thought that was really sick, and it just showed the flexibility of you know, of how he fights. You know, like, Shiki can fight, obviously, like we've seen him, you know, fight all the time, but he doesn't have any moves like this where it's more like pinpoint like accuracy, precision, and just kind of like more and more of a skill and technique based move, to where he's just going like, okay, well, you know, pick it apart and then move all these individual tiny pieces at him. And I would imagine that'd be kind of just like shrapnel, essentially, you know, just all these high speed moving little parts smacking into you. And Shiki, like, Shiki's tough, but he's not the most durable character, so like these are gonna do some damage to him. You know, Shura's coming in with some more attacks, landing some punches, getting the upper hand right now on Shiki. We saw Shiki have some more of the you know, the start hits of the fight, and now they're doing a really good job of just kind of, you know, swapping blows on each other. Shiki's a little bit more damaged than Shura, but that's because Shura got that last whole setup. And we see more also back at the ship, what's going on with you know, the rest of the Eden Zero crew. They're just getting ready to, you know, to move out and get ready to you know, to attack all these other like ships and stuff, and you know, get their, not their ships, or rather you know, go onto the planet to do this stuff with Ollie. The ships were somewhat already taken care of by Eraser, but it looks like Eraser's down. Like, he looks like he's pretty tired after using that attack. I'm still very curious as to like getting a description on how his ether gear works. Like, how long does he have to charge? Well, like, how exactly is his eraser power? Like, how does it work? How does is it described? I still assume that there's a power level thing to it, because otherwise that's to be like, should just be able to erase like people like Nero or Elsie or any of them. Like, it would make sense that, like, if it's only things like maybe with less ether than him, or if it's like he's applying so much ether to something it kind of overwhelms it and erases it, which then it would still come down to the ether thing. But, well, like, the only thing we have right now is that he has to charge, and after the usage that we just saw, he's pretty tired after that. He's not like a fighter-based character. He seems to be more like a kind of, you know, he's like, okay, yeah, sit in the back. You're kind of almost like if you had like an artillery thing. Like if, you know, you had like an army, you know, a war zone and stuff. You just had like maybe like that one gun, one big cannon that it's like, you know, you can fire it every X amount of minutes. You get one shot off, and then it's like you gotta wait for it to charge back up or get it prepped, or, you know, it takes forever just to reload. I would assume, or maybe he only gets like a couple amounts of shots, because if he's that tired, you know, he's sweating, he falls to the ground almost, like he, you know, collapses like a knee. It's definitely a drain on like his power. But let me get back to like the Shiki and Shura fight. We did get like a small joke of Moskowitz dressing like Shiki, which is pretty funny. I'm very curious, like, if we're gonna end up seeing that button push this arc. I have no idea. I have no idea what Mishima plans to do with that Moskowitz button. I'm expecting it to be like a battle mode or like a nuke or something ridiculous. But get back to the Shiki and Shura fight. They're just throwing punches. You know, the Shiki's get some hits in, Shura's get some more hits in, and then that's when Shura goes and then uses some of the wiring and some of the cables in some of those mechanical rods and ties up Shiki. And he's like, oh, now you can't do anything, all tied up. And that's when Shiki goes, gets in a stance, and uses gravity center, a much better gravity center as we've seen than before, and especially as it wraps up Shura in it. And Shura's surprised that Shiki can move, you know, or not move, but rather use his ether gear while he's tied up, which makes me wonder if Shura doesn't have that skill. I don't really know. It's because it's like, it wouldn't surprise me if he did. He's clearly strong, and I would say before Shiki got the Xenoid training, like Shura definitely would have been way stronger. If like, they're pretty much matched right now, and Shiki just came out of like a part where he got trained and powered up. So if he hasn't, maybe he's gonna be displaying that soon, because I assume he at least has an overdrive to the level that Shiki has. I don't think Shiki's is complete, but I mean, like, say even if it is, then Shura should have the same thing, because otherwise it'd be like the second Shiki goes overdrive, he's gonna clap Shura. So I assume Shura also has overdrive, and probably has the whole thing about like being able to use your ether gear even when tied up. Maybe that's why he'll like Shiki, is like, oh, Shiki also has that thing. So he's like, oh, cool, we're similar or something, because he says at the end of the chapter, he's like, I didn't think you could be this awesome, hey Shiki, and he's like, be my friend. And that's gonna be the weird part, because obviously we know how Shiki is, but I don't think Shiki's gonna go through with it. And the thing is, though, Shiki doesn't know how bad of a person Shura is. And like I compared him earlier to a character like, say, Godzilla or Gaara, but I mean closer to Gaara, but in terms of where I was going in terms of like his actions, because the difference between, say, someone like Godzilla was like a thug. He was a pretty violent dude, but he wasn't a killer. And Gaara like mostly killed people that like messed with him, or enemies and stuff. Shura was, as we saw literally in his introduction, just kind of murdering women for the fun of it, and not caring, like it's second nature to him. And he's murdered people for less. Like he just doesn't seem to really care about the lives of anybody he sees inferior to him. So I would be legitimately surprised if Mishima decided to turn him into an ally. I don't think so. I honestly don't think so. I'd be really shocked if he did, just from the fact that Shura's not a good person. Shura's clearly like a really bad dude. He's, again, doesn't care about the lives of others. He's, trying to set up the All-Link to kill all these machines, even though they weren't really the problem. It's a Ziggy thing. So he's fully, he's got this whole setup, again, with that, of being against the machines, just to kind of, like, he can not let Ziggy win. And Shiki's clearly not going to be about that. Like, just from the fact that he views machines more like objects and not really anything to care about. Like, that goes against Shiki's entire setup. Like, Shiki, obviously, as we know, believes the machines and, cyborgs, androids, and all that. Well, I guess cyborgs are different, because they, part humanoid, or human, or alien, or whatever, and, not machines, whatever. But androids, robots, or, whatever, he views them as the same thing, as living creatures. He believes that they have hearts and souls, and they are people. So I really don't see Shiki going with him at a fundamental level. Maybe Shiki will try and use this as an opportunity to talk to him, but the second, really, when you get down to Shura's personality, his views, and how he just sees others and treats others, I really don't see Shiki wanting to be friends with him. I don't see Shiki wanting to be on his side, and it'll probably just get real violent in the next chapter following it. Because again, if he is this bad, as we've seen, I mean, we saw him, again, kill those girls in the introduction. He just killed Saika for no reason other than, assuming, and he could be a threat if he gets infected, which I understand the idea, but it's like, lock him up. If you're worried about, like, this, pretty strong machine dude getting infected by Ziggy's virus, don't kill him. You'd be like, hey, man, we're gonna have to lock you up for now just in case. That'd be one thing. But he just, destroyed him. Like, if Shiki knew about that, he'd be furious. He doesn't even have to know who Saika is, but it'd be like, yeah, just in case, or I'm just gonna kill you. It would piss him off. It would just drive him into a rage. That Shiki, like, he just decided to murder somebody just cuz. And why would he want to be friends with him at that point? I really don't think that he will want to be friends with Shura, and I think Shura is too far to that aggressive side, and too far lost to become an ally of Shiki, just based on his actions. Though Shiki doesn't know about them yet, it's very obvious that the way that Shura is not going to meld well with how Shiki is. So I don't see it, like, the following going any other way than, like, Shiki trying to talk to him But then, like, when he realizes the kind of person that Shura is, he's not going to want to converse with them at all. He's not going to want to be friends with him. Because though Shiki wants to be friends with people, I highly doubt he wants to be friends with a bad person like this. And in their world, like, the machines and robots, the Shiki are people. It's the same as, as anybody else on a ship. Like, to him, it would be like the difference of, like, being like a different race. And I guess obviously with aliens, that's a little easier because it's like, other humanoids from other planets. But at the same thing as, a different species, a different race or whatever. So, I mean, like, with Shura, I mean, why would he want to be friends with him? Why would he want to be friends with somebody who clearly doesn't give, like, a shit about the machines at all and sees them as pretty much expendable, and you just get rid of them if they cause any problems? So it just doesn't. It wouldn't make. It's not that it wouldn't make sense if Shiki decided to try and be friends with him, but if Shiki knows about what he's like, I think that's where Shiki would just say no. As of right now, I don't think Shiki would have nearly as much of a difficulty trying to follow into that. But he doesn't know how bad Shura actually is. He knows he's clearly not the nicest guy, but he doesn't know about his his cold-blooded killing of people. And why would he want to stick around with a guy like that? I really don't see it happening because, like, he'd be a direct threat to anybody in the crew. Think about that, because, like, not only the machines, but also, like, the women on the ship. Like, he clearly doesn't care about them. He would probably try and kill them if they annoyed him whatsoever. My guess still is with Shura is he only views certain people as valuable. I personally believe that the whole thing with Nero having no real sign of care for the people of his empire at all, and he looks at it more from, like, the large scale structure of his empire. He looks at more over the idea of the empire and its entirety rather than individuals within it. He doesn't care about, the citizens or, the people in his military. It's more of their units and pieces to what he has. So Shura being raised in that, like, kind of environment and really seeing it as, like, obviously, like, anybody that's not of, like, a higher class is more like probably an object to him, which would make sense why he's perfectly fine killing those women, like, as we saw, and he's saying that they were, like, was it like a glee a dozen? So they're more like things for him to obtain. Whereas with Shiki, he might like Shiki enough that he'll kind of see him as a potential, kind of not like an equal, but like a valuable person, valuable enough to be like a friend. Kind of like how I assume it, like, Izuna. We don't know the backstory that, between her and Shura, but there's definitely something in there that made him, care about her. So that with Shiki, I can see him trying to do something like that, but again, Shiki's not going to go through with it. Like, Shiki's not going to go through with, like, a guy this rotten, and I don't think Shura is... I don't think Shura is really salvageable. There's always that kind of, like, shimmer and like, sliver of potential to turn him good, but I really don't think so. Because, like, the difference between, say, him and another character is, Mishima, you look at some of the other characters he's done, it's easy to compare something in his series to another one of his series. But you look at someone like Jalal, and, like, Jalal, the people that Jalal killed, but he was, he was kind of corrupted, brainwashed, and, led down a path that he chose, but it was kind of, again, he was manipulated into going down. But at the same time, he did these things, but when he realized they were wrong, he wanted to atone for them and do his best to make up for what he did. I don't think that's Shura. I don't think that's Shura's character, because, like, with Jalal, we know that before all that, he had, like, an actual good heart. He was a good person. I don't think that's at all the case for Shura. Shura just seems like he's just, again, rotten to his core. And I really don't see Shiki trying to follow up this request of being a friend. I see Shiki probably telling him to fuck off. That's how I really see it. Shiki, next chapter, is like, tries to talk to him. You get some comment from Shura that he clearly doesn't care about machines or, people that he sees inferior to him. And Shiki just says, okay, fuck you, dude. I don't want to be even remotely your friend. And this could be a big thing for Shiki, too. Shiki just kind of differentiating who he actually wants to be his friend. It'd be a nice step, Because we've seen, like, we've gotten a good couple things from Shiki. Like, we're still, I mean, it's like 142 chapters in. He's got some, you know, good chunks of character moments and progress. I think this would be a really good one to his core whole setup, is just knowing who he's, you know, he's not game for. But anyway, other than that, comment below. Thumbs up, dude, friend, like, button, subscribe, and tell me what your thoughts are about, like, how Shiki's going to follow up on this. I'm very curious as to other people's thoughts. As, like, does anybody think that Shiki is going to be, like, you know, Shiki in response to this and, you know, be all kind of friendly and funny? I don't think so. I only really see it as him seeing it as an opportunity to negotiate. Because Shiki's not, like, he's not really dumb. He's not the smartest guy, but I would put him, like, if I had to rank them, I'd probably put like, have Mishima's main characters. I'd probably put it as Haru at the top in terms of intelligence, and then I would say, like, Shiki is smarter. Like, personally, I think Shiki is smarter than Natsu, but I think he has less common sense than Natsu. Like, just because Shiki's kind of awkward, obviously, growing up in machines, he's a little bit weird. So they're kind of, like, they're at, like, an interchangeable spot depending on, like, what area of intelligence you'd be at. And then, so I could see him trying to be somewhat smart in this next chapter, but the second he finds out, you know, what Shura's like, he's gonna be like, yeah, no, yeah, go away. We're back to fighting. Anyway, like I said, I'm that, comment below, thumbs up the video, friend, like button, subscribe button, check out my other videos. But than that, appreciate everybody's already subscribed. Thank you all for listening. Bye.